feeding bears there, about a dozen households for over 40 years. And then I looked at the Department of Natural Resources complaint records. Wow, all these zeros from Eagles Nest Township. How did this community, lots of people, lots of bears, learn how to coexist with bears to that extent? And so I started asking people, and I find that what I discovered is that Ed Erasm on Armstrong Lake back in the 60s saw a bear that the neighbor was going to shoot because it was tipping over his garbage. He said, maybe I can get that bear not to tip over your garbage if I fed him next door instead. Maybe come to my house instead of yours. He was the pioneer of diversionary feeding. You can lead a bear into trouble with food, and you can lead a bear out of trouble with food. And so the bear didn't bother his neighbor anymore, and then other people would come over to his house and see the bears, and then they started doing it because they thought, hey, the same as we see today, they learned from the bear itself, an epiphany, hey, they're not so bad as we thought. So it was about a dozen people, and then came, the big test was like 1985, the worst bear food year on record according to DNR records in Minnesota. And the Ely Echo ran a nice big article, which is posted in the Bears in the News section at the Bear Center, about there's problems all over the area, but there's one area where there's not having problems. That's Eagles Nest Township, and where Ed Erasm and a dozen other people. There was not a bad food year there. When you get a bad food year, when bears elsewhere are looking for bird feeders, garbage, you know the story, you live here. That out there, then they go to the houses where they're used to being fed. And anybody who doesn't want to see a bear, any effort to reduce their attractants is extra effective because the bears have somewhere else to go to. The usual thing that people are told is, cut down your fruit trees, pick your fruit, don't put out garbage, take in your bird feeders. All good advice in an average year. You get a year with really good bear food, doesn't make too much difference what you do because bear problems are going to be low no matter what you do. But you get a really, really bad food year, like worse than we usually get around here. I'm talking more out west now, where multi-year droughts mean very bad food years. You remove all the attractants in that case, that means the only food left is inside. That's when you see things like in the news, Aspen, Colorado, with dozens of house break-ins per day. The more diligent they are about the usual advice in those areas, the more house break-ins you get. So so we're just seeing how things go at Eagles Nest, a township, where I looked at the DNR records of practically zero for years. Well, there was one year where there was a big bunch of problems, and weren't any worse problems than usual, I don't think, but it was different. Two things make a nuisance bear. One, what the bear does. Second is what people's attitude is about it. For some people, a bear that goes through their yard has to be removed. What about their kids? All that stuff you hear. For some people, a bear that gets their bird feeder, it destroyed my property. The bear has to be killed. Other people, they lived here first. I'll just be more careful. I'll make my bird feeder unavailable or whatever. Right up, till as bad as you want to make it. Attitude determines whether they're going to complain. So there was somebody moved in there that thought he had the right to feed birds and not see bears, and he was a very influential kind of person. He went to the DNR, asked him, "What can I do?" He said, "Well, the thing you got to do is generate a lot of complaints, have a generate a petition, get a resolution from the town board against the research, then we can do something. And they wanted to blame the research. So then it became that anybody that came into that office, the wildlife manager would ask them, oh, you came to talk about beavers? Okay, we'll talk about that, but let me ask you about bears. And he told us that he'll ask everybody that comes in his office from Eagles Nest Township about bears. If they say something about bears that he thinks is wrong, he'll put it down as a complaint. And so they ended up with 17 of them that year. They actually blamed us for 27, but when we saw where these were coming from, out the Fernberg, up by Cook, you know, they'd gone a little too far. But it was interesting, the complaints from Eagles Nest were mostly the bear showed no fear of people. The 10 that came from other areas, they were mostly the bear showed no fear of people. We had nothing to do with that. But a third of them were house break-ins. Nothing. You don't hear about that at Eagles Nest. No bear attacks, house break-ins, and very few nuisance complaints. So then once we got past that problem and they were back to not trying to generate complaints, they're back to zero. Usually zero. So it's kind of a good case study.
I noticed out at the center you have a wall of displays of different ways to discourage bears.
Yeah.
And I know we've noticed people want to feed bears or people want to shoot bears. There's not much in the middle. And I wondered if you could comment on some of those ways to discourage them from slingshots or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you have a recommended way short of shooting them?
Yep. Yes, good question. Well, I talked to the top bear chasers in the country, usually women they are. And little Sylvia Dolson out in British Columbia, little Ann Bryant around Lake Tahoe, and little Linda, I can't think of her last name, in New Jersey. And then Steve Searles, that's got a special on TV now, The Bear Whisperer, out in California. What do you guys like to do? Well, they all told me we got a lot of stuff we do for show, but when the media is there, or at least one person said that. But they all agreed that all they really needed to chase a bear away was a strong voice and an aggressive demeanor. And they all had stories about people standing around with guns scared, and if the bear made a move towards them, they wanted to shoot it. And they all know bear language. That means when they see a bear go like that towards you, they feel safe, like I do. It means the bear is nervous and wants to talk about it. It means the bear won't attack. But anybody that's interpreting things through their filter of fear means the bear was aggressive, I had to shoot it. I didn't know what was going to come next. You know, we've seen that hundreds of times, and nothing. I mean, I catch bear cubs in front of the mother. They're in my hand screaming. In that case, I even expect a bluff charge, not just the one big explosive hop. Never had one touch me. And so I see any bluster, I feel safe. So these women and Steve Searles, they all know that. And so everybody's standing around scared with guns. They say, oh, I'll get this bear out of here. And little Sylvia will go running, get out of here, bear, get out of here, bad bear, go away. And there they go. But Steve says his favorite thing, he has a tennis ball. As the bear is running, he shows the bear he can reach out and touch him by throwing the tennis ball in his butt. Then watch the bear read, extra. But they put on, but most people don't want to do that. So most people like to feel like there's something that they can do that gives them extra power until they learn enough about bears that they dare to just chase the bear away. So that's when they talk about the rubber bullets, the screamers, a thing that goes, you know, screaming at the bear and then hits the ground and blows up.
A couple of weeks ago, the news circle had a story about the woman who beat off a bear with a zucchini.
Yeah.
We got 2 zucchinis on our porch.
You wouldn't believe what we've seen bears be afraid of. Well, we got pictures in the bear center of people with their kitty cat chases away. One bear had a monarch butterfly land on the bear's back. The bear ran. The bear was in the guy's yard, and a duck came waddling up from the lake. I see it's time to go.
Yeah, we got a grin and bear it, Lynn.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lynn.